are 65 and older. Willie, with such a large portion of undecided voters and an older demographic, how might these factors shape the final outcome in Wisconsin?
I think that this shows that there is a need to get out and vote because having that many undecided voters in that age, I think, we said throughout the show that there is a voter apathy, and so I just would simply say that the undecided, it's time to make up your mind. I mean, this is it. I mean, literally. We are hours away from many states, especially on the eastern time frame that is getting ready to close.
Yes, Shakia.
Yeah, I would have to agree. It's unfortunate. Yeah, we do agree. It's the last day. I think it's unfortunate to see such large numbers of folks that haven't decided to make their voices, heard at the ballot. Right. And so eventually, once the polls close and the votes are tallied and we have a declared winner, hopefully that percentage of folks won't have that much to say about how their lives are going to pan out, whether you vote for Vice President Kamala Harris or if you vote for Donald Trump. So your voice is yours.
And that is very important with that because, so many people that normally in that undecided, they complain the most.
Y'all heard that? Y'all got an hour at least. Moving on to the next battleground state, Michigan. Early voting totals have reached 3,320,821, with registered Democrats and Republicans each making up 44% of the vote. Among these voters, 55% are women, 45% are men, 63% voting by mail, and 37% in person. Age-wise, 42% are 65 and older, while younger voters make up a smaller portion, with 11% in the 18 to 29 age range. Shakia, with such an even partisan split and a significant portion of older voters, could these demographics hint at any potential surprises in Michigan's final outcome?
I'm not sure. I think because we've seen this tango throughout the entire election. Polls have been varying and going back and forth every day, every week. And so now that we're hours away from the polls closing, I do think that we're seeing a larger amount of older voters voting because you have Donald Trump, who caters to the baby boomers in a way, right? And then you have Kamala Harris, VP Harris, who caters to more of like the millennials or like those who may be boomers, but they have children who are taking care of their parents and they have younger children. So there's this dichotomy that we're seeing within the polls. And so I don't know. We got a couple more hours to see how this all pans out.
Yes, we do.
I have to agree. I would say I like that Michigan is actually have higher numbers of turnout other than undecided. So that's a good thing that, we just, no matter who votes for who, we just don't need to have that gap of undecided. So I would say with that that is very close numbers.
In Pennsylvania, early voting numbers have reached 1,877,992, with registered Democrats making up 56% of the vote and Republicans at 36%. Women comprise 56% of early voters, while men account for 43%. In terms of age, half of these early voters are 65 and older, with smaller percentages among younger groups. Additionally, 63% of the votes were cast by mail and 37% in person. Willie, with such a high turnout among older voters and a strong Democratic advantage, what impact could these early voting trends have on Pennsylvania's final results?
Well, I would say this, that it is very interesting. When you look at, in Pennsylvania, places like that, you're going to have it more left-leaning. What I would say, though, is that across, like, down the ballot, we don't know. I mean, you may literally have Republicans that are going to go out and vote Democrat, and you may have Democrats that go out and vote Republican. And that's why this is the most interesting presidential campaign in history, because you really do not know until everything is counted and the results are in. And states like Pennsylvania and others take a little longer to get the results. So we may not see the results from Pennsylvania tonight.
Okay.
So, you know, just because everything, you'll stop getting the emails and text messages.
Yes.
but you might not know the results until 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah.
And so it's just, we just have to watch.
Okay, we just have to watch. All right. With Democrats holding a 56% to 36% advantage in early voting in Pennsylvania, do you think Republicans can close the gap on Election Day today, or is this early lead likely to give Democrats an edge in the final results?
Well, as I said, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we have like, what, 2.5, probably 3 more hours until polls close on like the Eastern Standard Time.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And so the time actually adds on, so you probably have like another 2 or 3 more hours for those on the West Coast.
Okay.
But it's, I feel like we're redundant because the blue wall, like we've been talking about all week, is where mostly Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have been doing their last final rounds of like campaigning and doing the concerts and all those things. And so if it hasn't worked by now, if folks haven't gotten off of work and gotten to the polls, more than likely they won't be participating in this election. However, I did hear that there have been a number of people who didn't receive their vote by mail ballot in the mail. They haven't received that to even cast it.
Oh, wow.
And so some folks on the ground today were complaining about that. And I was just like, look, we ain't got time for this. Just here is your polling spot and just get there before 7 p.m.
Go.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Go to your polling spot if you have not received your mail-in ballot. Willie, do you think Trump will be able to make a comeback in some of these key battleground states?
I think some of them will, but again, I mean, they are battleground states, and we have this. It is a battle.
It's a battle.
And to Shakir's point, you know, I've also heard that there are a lot of people who, for whatever reason, there's a lot going on in the mail system. And we've seen a lot with the mail system actually since the pandemic, and it has not changed. So we saw a lot of just delays, and a lot of people have been coming back and literally up right until it was time for early voting, did not receive their ballots that they asked for.
Yeah.
And so I would say that we, as Shakir said, we don't have time. Like you literally just need to go to the vote, if, the poll. If you don't have your ballot, you can always exchange it. There's all kind of laws that allows you to vote, even if you have it in your hand. And if you don't have it, take your ID, whatever you need to do, and just go out and vote. But I think there's some key states that he'll be able to win back, or it'll be very tight, as I said. And I think those will be the states where we won't know the actual number. I think it's going to be percent for percent, and that's what we're going to be seeing, that close.
Well, let me ask you this about the mail-in ballots. Like, do you have to request it every time you have an election, or, you know, it's just going to be automatic?
Before, it used to be automatic, and I think because it was so many complaints about, I heard people that requested before. I didn't request it. That was just that time. And so then they made it, you know, for you to go back and request it, you know, which either way you want it. I mean, most of the time, if you're a mail-in ballot person, you normally are a mail-in ballot person, period. And some people who are older does that because they, one, want to have time to research, and two, they're not able to physically go. So it allows for them to be able to vote and be able to turn it in a reasonable time. But even with that, because they've been so delayed, that if you turn in within that 9-day window, you are also risking your vote not being counted because the mail is delayed. So we've heard people, you know, I was at a forum where people was like, hey guys, if you at that 9-10 day mark, if you haven't turned in your mail-in ballot, you might want to get a family member to take you and turn in your ballot, because you don't want to miss that opportunity.
I
do want to add just really, we probably don't have enough
add it
time.
quickly, please.
Just really quickly. So I think in 2020, when COVID was around, a lot of folks, we had to vote by mail, right? And so in particularly in Florida, we saw a large number of folks who never voted by mail before decided to do that to be safe and to be cautious, right? And so I don't think our mail carriers were prepared for such an influx of people to do that. So that's probably also why there's a delay in there too.
Wow. Well, coming up next, find out what's been trending on social media, and we have the latest polls, so stay tuned. We'll be right back after this commercial break. If you're just now tuning in, you are watching Americana, the platform where we serve you the latest updates on the 2024, what did I do? For 2024 presidential election. I'm your moderator, Raquel Herring, joined by our Democratic host, Shakir Moore, and our Republican host, Willie Montague. Well, we're going to talk about now what's been trending on social media because a lot has been going on. Let's take a look at the most recent updates. Local governments are they're bracing for potential violence, having already encountered threats against polling places in Georgia, including a bomb threat that the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, attributed to Russia, though it was deemed not credible. Additionally, U.S. Capitol Police have made an arrest involving a person with a torch and a flare gun, while the FBI is tackling misinformation, including fake news reports suggesting that Americans should vote remotely due to heightened terror threats. Willie, with such a charged atmosphere surrounding the election, how might these legal disputes and security threats affect voter turnout and the confidence today in the electoral process?
Wow. It is definitely a lot that's going on out there. I mean, this is to be expected, and not really from any particular side. I just think that and the reason I say that is because I really think that when things happen like this, because we talk about it so much, you have individuals who might not even be voters, but they use this opportunity to be part of something. Some people like, I used to watch these crime shows, but some people like these 15 seconds of fame. They create scenarios and do stuff, and they have no life. And so they go out here and get everybody stirred up in fear and whatever. And so it's to be expected, especially as important, and I want to say this is one of the most important elections in our history.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, you're going to have all kinds of stuff that's going to come up.
Yeah. I think it's a fair question to sit with. Like, what does safety look like once the polls close and a winner is announced in a couple of days? And I think that's because when Donald Trump did lose the 2020 election, although he didn't concede, we saw a wave of outrage and violence in various communities, and particularly at the Capitol. And so there is a concern that should he lose the 2024 election, that may be a repeat or it may be even greater. So I encourage all of you to stay vigilant, meaning just be aware of your surroundings. If you see something, say something, and just make sure you're safe.
Yeah, and be careful where you're getting your information from.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's, vote like what? Remotely? On to the next topic. There has been much controversy at the polls. Some citizens are making claims that the electronic polling will not allow them to vote for Trump. I've also heard this in California, though, of not being able to vote for Kamala or having to go like all the way down the ballot. I've heard this in Georgia of being given Republican ballots. And I was like, aren't they supposed to be like together, Democrat, Republican, or they need a Democrat ballot. So, I mean, stuff's happening out there. So, Willie, do you think there may be a glitch in the system, or, is this fake news? Getting riled up, riling people up.
I mean, this actually happens. This goes back to why, but what is so interesting to me that we have 4 entire years to get our systems together. It is, to me, I think that especially in the state of Florida, I think that there's plenty of places, plenty of funding to give us the right equipment and technology to make sure people feel secure. Because when this news go out and people feel this way, this is why we have voter apathy. This is why you have such a % of undecided. Because it may not even be deciding who to vote for as much as is it even going to be worth my vote. If you got people taking pictures saying, hey, I can't press on VP Harris, I can't press on Donald Trump, and some of these ballots are like 4 pages. People are, they're wanting to go to vote for the person Some of them don't even have no clue about these amendments. It's like they throw it, which I believe they shouldn't even be part of the election. The reason why is because people get in there like, I don't even know, I didn't study, no one came to me, no one researched, now you're just giving me this thing to vote for, and now I'm left to it. So I do think there's glitches out there, but as you mentioned, I think it's glitches on both sides, that there's things that's out there, and it should not be that way, especially in the age of technology that we're in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would also add, though, we had a chance of getting all of our technology and putting our ducks in a row, not even 4 years, but every 2 years, because you have your midterms, right? So there should be an ongoing process of updating equipment and technology. And I don't know what the process looks like to become a poll worker or testing out the equipment before Election Day, but I wonder if they ran through all of the equipment to see if there were any glitches, and there weren't any until today. So it's just really weird how all of this comes up. Not blaming one side or the other, but it's happening, and not just in one particular state. It's happening in like various
many places.
Yeah.
Well, even video games they do testers for. You know, apps that are coming out on the market, you have testers for. You know?
Well, they do have days where you can go and watch them, but again, they're only doing that with a small quantity. It's not the general populace. They're not running literally the population in the ballots. And I think that's what it is. Like some of these machines, they're machines. And that goes back to, I do believe that we have the technology, and I think we need to just, like, you know, we have the dollars, tax dollars that should be spent to securing this, especially in times like these. Or, you know, like people advocated. I mean, because if we go back to paper ballots, that's going to take even longer. That's why we have the technology we have. So a lot of people are advocating for one-day voting, paper ballot, and that's going to be. You talking about having election results 3 weeks later.
But you talk about having tax dollars to fund certain things like this, but I think in some cases, the SOE, meaning the Supervisor of Elections Office, don't always have the allocated funds to make sure that people know about certain amendments or certain resources when it comes to voting. So that's when you have like other grassroots organizations that'll come in and teach you, or you have the League of Women Voters that'll come in and they are nonpartisan and give you information about things that are on the ballot. So it's just really a part of the voter apathy that we're seeing. You can have all of these things presented at you, but at the end of the day, you got to want to know what's happening within your government and then getting out there to make it happen.
And that's what Malcolm X said, that the problem is not the people voting, it's the education behind the voting. And a lot of people are not educated on what is out there. And there are actually the SOE, some of them give money to organizations to get the information to the people because they just cannot do it all. So churches, nonprofits, you know, they're out there. But then again, you know, it's just, you know, it's only so much. I looked at the thing and it was like $2,000. You know, it's hard to reach, you know, a masses with $2,000
for sure.
do it. So
this is the most civil we've been.
I know this. I love this. We're having a conversation. You can trust that we will fill you in on the latest news and social media updates. And on that note, let's get back to the latest polls. In Georgia, early voting has reached 4,031,093, with registered Republicans leading at 48% compared to Democrats at 45%. Women make up 56% of early voters, while 44% are men. Age-wise, 30% of voters are 65 and older, and only 7% of early votes were cast by mail, with 93% completed in person. Willie, with Republicans holding a slight lead in early votes and such a high in-person turnout, do these numbers suggest that Republicans are, you know, on the right track to take Georgia?
That is a large number of in-person turnout. My eyes went like 93%. It's good. I'm glad people want to get out and vote, stay in the lines. I do believe that surprising enough that Georgia is going to be more leaning towards red. However, you do have places, you know, like Atlanta, different places like that, that do not vote that. So again, with that tight number, because remember we spoke about before about the 3% margins of error.
Right.
So when you look at things like this, again, 93%, because what we're reading here is not the part of today, that's what's going out. So that 93%, that is what we will have to see after tonight is closed. And again, I think Georgia's one of those states that's pretty fast at getting the results back.
Okay. And Shakia, do Democrats still gain ground in the final results? Do you think that'll happen?
In Georgia, I would think yes.
Okay.
Because Donald Trump lost Georgia in 2020 to President Joe Biden. And so to see that the numbers are greatly leaning towards, not even greatly, there's still within that margin of error with them leaning towards Donald Trump. It's just interesting to see how that would actually play out by the end of the night when the polls close and they tally up all the votes.
Yes. In North Carolina, early voting has reached 4,748,038, with Democrats and Republicans each making up 33% of early voters. Women account for 55% of voters, and men account for 44%. In terms of age, 33% of early voters are 60 and older, while the younger people, age groups, are more evenly distributed. Additionally, 64% of votes were cast in person and only 6% by mail. So, Shakia, I'm going to ask you this question in just a moment here. Okay, well, maybe I'm not asking you a question because we got to get out of here. Thank you so much for joining us. The race between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris has certainly kept us on our toes. Thank you for tuning into Americana. You can join us right here weekdays, 7:30 p.m. Thank you for watching. God bless you.